Alrighty, welcome back everyone. We just talked about a number of things. LSU gets a comfortable but not great win over Florida. Miami rolls South Florida. Arch Manning doesn't look the part right now, and I don't know what to make of it. There is a good football player in there. He is not coming out lately, so a lot of things to figure out over there in Austin. But we got some number of things to talk about right now. We got a couple of games that happened all the way back on Friday that I want to get into. A couple of teams that struggled a little bit more than I was expecting, and a couple of coach firings, unfortunately, that we have to talk about here. But let's go ahead and jump into this, and we'll start with the game that happened all the way back on Friday night. Houston gets a comfortable win over Colorado, 36-20. Willie Fritz is that guy. He has every ability to make this Houston team downright special. Maybe it won't be this year. Maybe they won't be able to put it all the way together with the talent level that they have. Going forward, this is going to be a football team you're going to have to worry about. I can absolutely promise you that. Did great things in the portal, bringing in Connor Wegman, bringing in Tanner Koziel, bringing in Dean Connors. These are very, very good football players that fit exactly what Willie Fritz wants to do with this football team. They dominated Colorado from start to finish, especially on the ground. Connor Wegman dominated them with his legs. Not something I expected to say, if I'm being totally honest, but Ryan Staub did struggle in his very first start. 2 INTs in this football game. The Colorado run game is just not good. It's not nearly good enough to help any quarterback really succeed at a very high level. They have to find a way to get it a little bit better. If you have to get weird, if you have to run end rounds, use guys like a Jerlon Miller and a Marion Miller to get on the outside, you might just have to do it. It is a very, very weird situation, especially with those quarterbacks. If it was my decision, I'd go with Julian Lewis. You're 1-2 right now. You're probably not in a great position going into the Big 12 play, especially 0-1 in the conference already. I'd stick with the kid and try to build a future. I don't know what the situation is around there. I don't know what's going to happen going forward, but I'd go with the one that the fan base can look at and say, maybe it's not perfect right now. It very well could be going forward. But Houston, 1-0 in the conference. They go into Oregon State after a bye week this weekend, and then a huge one against Texas Tech. They find a way to win that one. They are firmly in the mix in the Big 12 race with guys like Stephon Johnson making big plays, Tanner Koziel, and an offense that's going to be really, really hard to stop for this Houston Cougars team. Arizona gets a 23-17 win over Kansas State. I don't know what you say about Kansas State at this point. I don't know what happens to a team when they lose over there in Ireland, but just don't go over there. Whoever loses that TCU-UNC game, take their win total under and take it by a lot, because something happens. It's very, very tough for what Kansas State's doing right now. Another really tough showing. Arizona really needed this one. There's no doubt about that. It's not a conference win. I should say that off the top. This was a non-conference game for whatever, some odd reason. But they do go to Ames here after a bye week this upcoming weekend. Who knows? If they find a way to win that game against Iowa State, Noah Fafita is back on top of the world. This Arizona team is doing something pretty interesting. And Brent Brennan, after a year where I was pretty ready to write him off, if I'm being totally honest, he finds a way to revive this team and do something pretty special around there in Tucson. But I don't really know what is or isn't gettable for this Kansas State team going forward. Looking at their schedule, they can beat UCF, I suppose. Outside of that, I don't really know. Oklahoma State maybe is a gettable one, but it's not going to be pretty throughout the rest of the season. If I had to imagine for Kansas State, I don't think this one's going to turn out very well. Is the way I'll put this. I don't know what happens with Avery Johnson after this year. I don't know what happens with a lot of that team after this year, but you might just want to ride this one out, Kansas State fans. Ohio State wins 37-9 over Ohio. This one looks a whole lot better than it was. For about 3 quarters, this one was ugly. It was 13-9 in the second half of this football game, and then Ohio State turns a corner and takes over the way that they often do. Jeremiah Smith makes a ridiculous play. You have Julian Sayin throw an absolute dime to Carnell Tate. Both of them went over 100 yards in this football game, and Ohio State's able to win comfortably. The main reason I want to talk about this game is Bo Jackson is a special player, and not the Bo Jackson that you're thinking of. He is a special player, but totally different conversation. Bo Jackson is a freshman running back for the Buckeyes. He went for 109 in this game, including a 64-yard run. That might be your RB1 going forward. That sounds crazy to me because I thought James Peoples was going to be a downright star for this football team, and he very well still could be. C.J. Donaldson, I thought was going to be the battering ram, quote-unquote, of this football team, and I tend to believe he's still going to be that. But at the end of the day, you have that kid rolling that quickly, he could be very, very dangerous. Obviously, this is not going to be the toughest challenge that they as a team or he faces, but that's a really special athlete that can do some really awesome things, and you never really know. For Ohio, The CFP chances were probably unlikely going into this game, and they're a little bit more unlikely now, but they could firmly be in the MAC race, and I think if you're talking to real college football people, you're going to be locked into the MAC on Tuesday nights. But we'll talk about that later in the season. For Ohio State, you got a sneaky trip to Seattle after the bye week this upcoming weekend. They should be okay before at Illinois, and then Penn State and Michigan to really watch from there. This football team's awesome in every sense of the word. Now, obviously, the offense left a little bit to be desired in this football game, but they're going to be fine. There's a sleepwalk spot that totally makes sense that I don't think is crazy. They get a bye week, they get to collect themselves, and then not a terribly tough one, but definitely a little bit of a challenge going on the road to Seattle and trying to beat a interesting Washington football team. Oregon gets a sleepwalky-ish, but a comfortable win, or 34-14 over Northwestern. They didn't look themselves through half of this football game. It totally makes sense. They've won 2 games where they've rolled and played really, really efficient football. You travel all the way to the Evanston, Chicago area, and you get a big-time win. It's fine. It wasn't perfect by any means, but outside of one explosive run for Northwestern, this football team for Oregon was downright dominant on the defensive side of the ball. They're going to be more than fine. They get Oregon State this upcoming weekend, and then it's at Penn State. For the whiteout at night, going to be downright special. You find a way to win that one, you could be setting up another trip to the Big Ten Championship, trying to win another one after all. So a lot of great things for this Oregon football team. I don't think they're going anywhere. I guess the best way to put it, they're going to be a team firmly in the mix all the way into November, and probably after that, we will see what this team can do. I was a little bit low on them coming into the season, but they're proving me wrong week by week. They're still looking at Indiana, USC, Washington, so definitely some really, really tough games, but they're essentially looking the CFP in the mouth if they find a way to win that Penn State game, and then they're probably looking the Big Ten in the mouth as well. Iowa State beats Arkansas State on the road 24-16. Please stop going to these group of 5 stadiums. You are going to lose one of these one time. And Iowa State probably should have lost this game. There was a bad holding call on a Jalen Raynor touchdown that took away one for Arkansas State that probably could have been a huge one in this football game. Iowa State found a way to win. And you sprint out of that stadium because it was a little bit sketchy late in that game, but you find a way to win, you move forward. They get a bye this week, which they desperately need, and then it's Arizona, Cincy, Colorado, and BYU. You should be in pretty good shape moving forward. You should be undefeated going into an Arizona State game, TCU, Kansas, that are going to be tough, but this team is firmly in the mix in the Big 12. They should continue to be the mix, but they got a lot of things to figure out, particularly the QB run game. If other teams are able to tap into that, particularly a team like BYU with Bear Brockmeyer or Sam Levitt finding a way to make things happen with his legs. Josh Hoover can do that. We know Jalen Daniels can do that. So something to watch throughout the season. Jalen Raynor was able to make a lot of plays with his legs in this game. Something to watch, but Iowa State gets the win. They move forward and firmly in the mix in the Big 12 going forward. USC gets a comfortable but not impressive win, 33-17. They needed a kick return to actually get to 33, so 26 scored by this offense. Not a very consistent group. I think they have the flash players to do some really special things and win some of these big games down the road, but they got a lot of things to figure out. Jaden Mayava has a lot of things to figure out. They got at Illinois coming up here pretty soon, Michigan, Notre Dame, and after 4 weeks, they get Illinois, Michigan, Notre Dame over the next 4 weeks, and then they have Michigan State after that. After Michigan State next week. Apologies, broke that down a little bit weird, but at the end of the day, going to be a relatively tough schedule. If they find a way to go to beat Michigan State this weekend and then go 2-1 against Illinois, Michigan, Notre Dame, they're firmly in the mix. As of right now, I would not bet on them to go 2-1 in those football games, so it'll be interesting to watch what they can do. Everything's still on the table for this USC team, but not necessarily the performance they wanted to put on tape. Cal gets a win 27-14 over Minnesota. We got to talk about him. Jaren Kiave Sangapulatele. Hope I did that plenty well. He looks like Michael Penix. I don't know how else to describe him now. Maybe a little bit lazy with the lefty-lefty comparison there, but this guy slings the ball around the football field. He is downright special. This Cal football team looks dangerous. JKS went for 279 in this game, 3 scores. If this kid plays that level of football, they don't get Clemson. They don't get Miami, no Florida State, no Georgia Tech on this schedule. I don't know. I'm not saying they're going undefeated. I would probably not bet on them going undefeated or even really being in the ACC race. But this freshman quarterback is electric, and they have a lot of things going in their direction. We'll see how this kind of thing develops, but they got out South Dakota State this upcoming weekend. Then they got at Boston College. They find a way to win those 2 games, you never know. You can watch Cal the rest of the season, and maybe it's them and Georgia Tech in the ACC championship after they've run the table in the conference. I wouldn't necessarily bet on it, but it's very much on the table right now in the ACC. DeShaun Foster and Brent Pry have been let go. They were the first casualties of this football season. It was tough. Both these seasons for these teams, and really the last couple of seasons for these football teams, have been really, really tough. UCLA gets truly dominated by New Mexico. Frankly, 35-10 isn't even indicative of the performance that UCLA put on tape. They lose on Friday night, and I think the decision was probably made Friday night. And then Old Dominion just rolled over Virginia Tech. They were up 31-0 in that football game, and Brent Pry is let go. Virginia Tech turns to Philip Montgomery the rest of the way, their offensive coordinator. Tim Skipper, the special assistant to DeShaun Foster, is going to take over for UCLA. Both are going to be looking for new guys. The interesting wrinkle here in the world that we live in college football, the portal just opened for both these football teams. They opened today. It's going to stay open for an entire month. They won't be able to play this season, so you're not going to see anyone that played for Virginia Tech in Week 1 find their way to a new team and play for Ohio State in Week 10. That's not going to happen. That can't happen this year. But these teams might struggle to put together a team on the football field. Now, I don't think it'll be terrible, but there's a lot of players that are going to look at this and say, I've played 3 games. If I play if I play 2 more, I don't get this year back. I can use a red shirt as of right now, the ones that can use a red shirt. I can use it. I can move to a new team, start to learn that system, and be ready to roll in 2026. A lot of guys are going to make that decision, and I don't necessarily fully disagree with that decision. It's a frustrating one. It's one that I wish they didn't have to make in a lot of respects, but a lot of guys are going to do that, and we'll have to see what happens with these 2 football teams moving forward. I'm not sure UCLA is going to win a football game. I'm not sure Virginia Tech is going to win a football game. I'm not sure they're going to have a lot of football players to put out there on Saturdays going forward. Hopefully it's enough to put together a football team. Hopefully it's enough to at least be relatively competitive moving forward. Hopefully they keep the quarterbacks, I think, is the biggest thing here. Kyron Drones over there at Virginia Tech. Nico Imaliava, one of the more interesting characters in college football right now. We will see what happens in both those cases, but it's going to be weird times as of right now in the next little bit. You had to make these decisions. I don't think it's a crazy decision on either side. So not necessarily wild, not necessarily what I didn't expect, but a lot of things are going to change about these football teams over the next little bit, and these interim coaches are going to have to find a way to figure it out. It's going to be a really weird time for UCLA. There's a number of guys you can go get. I think this UCLA job has untapped potential. I think it has the ability to be maybe not a top 10 or top 15 job, but be a pretty good one. Be in a position where you are in the center of a very, very talent-rich area. You're obviously competing with USC. That is going to be hard to do no matter what you do. But you have the ability to do this. You have donors that I think didn't get involved because they knew this thing wasn't going to go well with Foster, and it didn't go well with Chip Kelly before that. I think they're going to find a new AD, if I'm being totally honest. I think they're going to find a new coach, and I don't know who you go after exactly. I think there's a number of great options, whether you want to go up to Eugene and try to steal Will Stein. Maybe you go over to Utah, try to steal Jason Beck from them. It'll be really interesting to see how that develops. I do think UCLA is a job that you get the right guy in there with the right backing in, probably the right AD over him. You're in a position where you can do some really special things in LA. Obviously, you got quite a bit of work to do and your work cut out for you, but a lot of good things can happen over there. Virginia Tech's kind of interesting to me because in the past, they have been a high-level football program. I'm not sure that's going to be their future. I think they're in a bad position for the NIL era moving forward. Doesn't mean they can't do something really cool. And maybe you can go steal Shane Beamer. I don't think you're going to win that battle against South Carolina, but maybe he wants to coach where his dad coached for so long. There's a number of great choices around there as well. Bob Chesney, maybe from JMU, steal him over to come over to Virginia Tech, stay in the state. A lot of things on the table for these 2 football programs. The reality is you can have conversations. Probably nothing's going to be made official until the end of the year, and we'll have to see how all of that develops. But 2 coaches that, mainly DeShaun Foster, I should say, I don't think was going to succeed almost no matter what, given the situation over there at UCLA. For Brent Pry, a lot more stuff that was left on the table for him, so not necessarily a surprise in either of these cases. Really tough starts of the year for both these teams, and I don't think it's going to get a whole lot easier. I think a lot of guys are going to hit the portal. I think a lot of new things are going to happen with those programs, and it's probably going to be pretty tough for them to turn this thing around this year. So a lot of things that happened this last weekend, and two coaches that find their way out the door, and we'll see what happens with those programs moving forward. But we'll break down everything at the very end of the show. We got winners, losers, a number of things to talk about. Elite coaching won the weekend, and we'll talk about it all right after this, so stick with us.